Do you think there is a lot of fabric waste in fussy cutting?
I can see why that's a turnoff for people, because the black spots on spots when I was cutting out the little setting triangles, oh my God, I laid it out on the floor and I had all these triangles cut out of it. And I was like, this is the most expensive piece of Swiss cheese ever. Like, oh, if my husband knew, if he only knew. But there's still so many sections left that I will easily be able to find something else to do with those other. And I think that's part of like the creativity. Like, how can I, as an artist, find a way to use those extra pieces?
You're listening to Fussy Cutters Club podcast, a show that gives you permission to cut into the good fabric so you can make quilts you love. And now your host, who believes it's not a crime to love using novelty fabrics, Ange Wilson.
Today I'm joined by someone who I know only through Instagram, and their work is amazing and immaculate. They specialise in English paper piecing, or EPP for short. They are Handmade by Katie on Instagram. Katie is a lawyer by day and a hand-stitching fiend by night. I found Katie via Instagram. We've only just become good friends now. We both share a love of Chula pink. And if you're new to the world of English paper piecing and you're thinking about getting into it, I highly recommend that you follow Katie for inspiration. And Katie has a really unique spin on it because Katie uses quilt kits or block of the month kits to make her fussy cut creations, which shows you that fussy cutting is possible with minimal amount of fabric, which is really great for those that are worried about how much they need. I'm really excited to bring Katie to you today, so let's get chatting. Welcome, Kate. Do you prefer Kate or Katie? What would you like?
Katie is, my family calls me Katie, but Kate is also good.
Okay. I'll just call you Genius. That'll be easier. So I recently found you because I've been avoiding social media like the plague for probably the last few years. And then when I got the idea to delve deeper into fussy cutting, I went on Instagram and looked for inspiration, and yours was one of the first accounts that I found. And then I lost, 2 hours just scrolling back over the years, looking at everything. So you do quilting as a hobby. You're not a pattern designer. You're not selling anything. You don't run a store, although your sewing space is very beautiful. It could be a store.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be a patchworker or a quilter?
Sure. So my full-time job, I'm actually a lawyer internally for a big corporation, which is, I think, the complete opposite of being a quilter. So I needed an outlet for my creativity. And being a lawyer, the answer is always, it depends. It's a gray area, right? So I wanted to have something that appealed to my mathematical side of my brain, but also the creative side of my brain. And I don't get either of those through my work. So, yeah, I started cross-stitching first when I was a very young girl, and then I moved to knitting, and then I moved to crocheting, and then finally I got a sewing machine, and I just fell in love, and I've stuck with that for probably 20 years now. And I will sew on the sewing machine. I have made quilts on my sewing machine, and I love to do that, but my true love is English paper piecing. And I think that really lends itself well to fussy cutting because the shapes can be such unusual shapes with different kinds of angles, and you can put them together in really interesting ways to make secondary patterns. So once I found English paper piecing, then that was it for me. That's what I spend most of my time on. And I love to do it at night while I watch TV with my husband or on weekends where we're snuggled up. I'm in outside Chicago, and right now it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which I think is negative 20 Celsius outside. So I am snuggled up inside, not going anywhere. So
yeah, I have no concept of that as a temperature, lifestyle, nothing.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
I can imagine. So you do mention, so English paper piecing, for those, I listen to a lot of Smartless, and so every time I go to explain something, I feel like going, for Tracy at home. English paper piecing is where you use thin card shape cutouts and you cut the fabric with the seam allowance a little bit bigger than the paper, and you fold the fabric over the paper, and then you stitch them together. So it allows you to do more complex shapes. It's an easier way to do Y seams, which most people have a healthy fear of when it comes to sewing machines and Y seams. And so you get these really intricate geometric based quilts that you don't see in traditional pieced fussy cutting. So I'm going to ask you the horrible question. Do you have a favorite quilt that you've made so far?
Ooh. I mean, it's like choosing your favorite child, right? I don't know. I think probably my La Passacaglia that I made last year is probably my favorite. I did it through a Block of the Month club with Pink Door Fabrics, which is a wonderful shop. I'm not affiliated with them. I just love them. And it made it easy to do such an overwhelming project because I didn't have to think about the fabric. I was just able to cut it, sew it, and it was done for me. But the way I could incorporate my own creativity into it is the way I fussy cut. And of course, Tula Pink's fabrics, I made it with Tula Pink's fabrics. And we all know that her fabrics are brilliant for fussy cutting because she has so many little hidden animals and other little things in her fabric that you can highlight, and geometric patterns. So I think probably my La Passacaglia, the pattern is by Wileen Hammerstein. I'm thrilled with the way that one turned out.
I'm going to have to hire you to say all of those things for me on a professional basis, because I call it La Pass, so I don't have to say it. And I call it that European lady that wrote all the amazing books, because I can't say her name either.
I hope I said it correctly. I hope I did. Fingers crossed.
I'm so Australian at times. It's not funny. So I'm really intrigued by the fact that your La Pass is a Block of the Month. Big fans of Chelsea and her store. And I like yours looks so different to the one that they advertised the kit for. When the kit came, did you go, oh, they say to put this, like, did they give any direction on what went where? Or was it?
They did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that they offer is like a fabric cutting guide. And I actually did try to follow it for the most part. So I guess my individuality is shining through when you look at it.
It's such a good use of colour and it's one of those quilts that just sucks you in and you think, oh, I just want to spend hours looking. And every time you think you've seen everything, there's something else in there as well. So now you also do a solids. You've mixed in some solids in there. Did that come in with the quilt kit?
It did, yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done the alchemy quilt as well?
Yes, I'm currently working on that, and that's with all the solids and true colors by Tula Pink. So there's no like big focus prints in that. It's mostly just low volume.
And you're doing Queen of Diamonds as well.
Queen of Diamonds, yes, that's through Pink Door Fabrics as well.
And the Fussy Bugs pattern that you're doing.
That's mine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's mine. I had a lot of the spots on spots fabric from Tula Pink, of course. Yep. And I wanted to find a way to highlight just a plain's not the right word, but to make fussy cut 6-pointed stars and just make a kaleidoscope. And I thought the spots on spots fabric would be a perfect way to offset those. And I just went through my Tula Pink fabric and found ones that I thought would make brilliant fussy cutting. And just kept making these stars, and they came together, and you can kind of see it on my wall here, or on my account for those listening.
Yeah.
And and it's coming together.
So we will have links and copies and stuff of all of Kate's amazing work. And you can follow her on Instagram, obviously. I've got to ask, are you setting the hexagons with spots on spots, but in the black? And yes. That big strip behind you, is that all spots on spots?
It is.
Spots on spots was one of those ones where I was like, at the time went, I I won't get a lot of that. And now I'm like, why didn't I buy everything?
I know. I have to tell you, I have I'm in some Facebook groups where people sell out of print, and I have probably spent more than I will not admit how much I've spent on trying to track down enough for this quilt, but I think in the end it'll be worth it because the effect is going to be really great.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's such a good example of how the same shape changes depending on the fabric placement. And
Yes.
it's such a good demonstration of those little hidden Easter eggs of Chula's in her designs that if you focus on those, the effects and the impact that they make going through it. Like there is some fabric in here that I'm just like, oh, I wish I had that. So Queen of Diamonds is again another kit from Pink Dwarf Fabrics.
That's correct.
And so that's block of the month. So you're working on one section at a time. Do you ever get impatient and be like, I just knocked that off and really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Send me the next one?
Absolutely. Right now, I've completed every month that they've sent, and I am anxiously awaiting for the next month. I just got the email yesterday that they're getting ready to ship it. So absolutely.
Yeah.
My speed is a lot faster than I think the month speed.
But you've got so many projects on the go as well. So it's not like you're short for anything.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
There's one block that you've done for your fussy, what did you call it? Fussy bugs?
Fussy bugs. Mm-hmm.
And it's the scroll work from the Queen of Hearts in Curiouser and Curiouser.
Yeah, I have that one right here. Is it this one? I brought a couple because I wasn't sure if we'd be on video, but this one?
Yeah. That is such a good use of. So do you use a mirror? Do you use a mirror technique?
I won't use a mirror, actually. So I have the 2-inch diamond template.
Yep.
And I have a light box or a light table or tablet or whatever you want to call it. And I put the fabric on. I actually put it on upside down with the wrong side facing up so I can draw on it. And I use either a Soline air erase pen, or even sometimes I'll use a Sharpie because I'm going to cut it anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I make sure I just line it up precisely. And the template that I have has the window in it so I can mark on the inside as well. So I know where my paper is going to go. And that's how I'm able to get such a precise
repeat,
I guess. Right, exactly. So that it makes that kaleidoscope effect.
Yep. So you don't, because I get asked this question a lot, you don't use a mirror to see what it'll look like before you cut it. You just instinctively know I'm going to have a go. I'm going to cut this bit and it's either going to work or it's not going to work, but it's 100% in your head. There's no...
That's exactly right. Yeah. And because I think a mirror with something like this where it's not symmetrical, where it kind of like swirls, the mirror wouldn't show exactly what it would look like. It would make a mirror image of it. So I don't want to distract myself with that. So I just kind of go for it. And I have to like trust myself that what I've picked is going to work. And like, honestly, the fabric is so beautiful. And when you align it precisely, generally, no matter what you pick, it can be beautiful. So I try not to stress too much about it.
That's a really good lesson for everybody. It's that you're working with stuff you love. And so whatever you do, you're going to love the outcome and that precision. So is your template completely solid and it's got the stitch line, or is it just the seam allowance and there's nothing in the middle?
There's nothing in the middle. Yeah, it's just the seam allowance. It is clear, so I can see what's going to be in the seam allowance, but I'm able to kind of visually eliminate that when I'm looking.
Yeah. So do you find now that you're more confident? So how long have you been fussy cutting first?
I would say doing the very precise fussy cutting with the light table and the template, probably 2 years.
Okay.
So not too long, but long enough where I feel confident. Yeah.
And do you think that your approach has changed significantly since you've started, or it's just gotten tighter?
Tighter, for sure. I used to not, even when I was making the La Passe, I just kind of eyeballed it.
Yeah.
And the effect when I did that was okay. And, you know, I've heard the phrase that if you can't see a mistake on a quilt when you're riding past on a horse, then no one else is going to see it. And I kind of have taken that to heart because I'm a perfectionist. And if there's a mistake, it makes me really upset. So the eyeballing it kind of worked for me. But then as I got further into it, I thought, you know what, I can do better than this. I can make this tighter. And so that's when I started being more precise in how I cut it.
And did you, this will sound like a funny question, but did you come up with how you got that precision, or how have you learnt, basically? How have you upskilled in
Sure. So Lilabelle Lane Creations from Australia.
Sharon.
Sharon. Yes. She has done a series of videos for her Galaxy quilt that show how she fussy cuts diamonds for a 6-pointed star. And that was tremendously helpful. I recommend anybody who wants to fussy cut, particularly a 6-pointed star, to watch her videos, because the techniques that she imparts by picking focus points to put the point of your template on, so that when you put your paper on to glue it or baste it down, you don't have to guess where to put it. You know exactly where. She's brilliant, and I have her to thank for, I think, improving my skills.
Well, that's great. So, and we will link to those videos so that people can go and have a look at them. I guess the question I have is, will you ever do any other fabrics, or are you a Chula girl, ride or die, all the way to the end?
I do love Tula, and I have a lot of Tula that I do need to use. My husband is getting a little bit like, where are you? Every time fabric shows up, he's like, where are you going to put this? And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm going to use it. But I do need to use it for real. But I also have a ton of Allison glass, the top of my shelf here. And it's in one of my recent posts on Instagram. That's all Allison glass. I love Allison. So I'm actually making a Dear Jane. I'm English paper piecing that. That one has been put away for a few years. It takes a lot of focus, and there's not really a lot of fussy cutting in that one. But I'm using Allison's fabrics for that. For now, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm just trying to, in my head, go, oh, Dear Jane and Allison glass. Because the saturation level in Allison is so delicious. And
yes,
the impact that it's going to have in a Dear Jane, that's going to be amazing. Anyway, as you were, yeah.
Thank you. If you scroll down far enough on my account, you can see those. I'm putting them on pure white background, so it does look pretty cool. But it is still rainbow, which, if anyone has seen my Instagram account, you will not be surprised that I'm doing it in a rainbow, because that's my whole aesthetic. So I have some Kaif facet fabric that I love, which is probably no surprise to any Tula fans. Anna Marie Horner is also a wonderful designer with her. She has organic flowers and everything. So, I love Ruby Star Society as well. They have speckle fabric and things. Yeah. They're like neutral, but not really neutral. So, yes, but Tula is my main girl for sure.
Yeah. And it's really funny. I don't know whether it's like birds of a feather kind of thing, but you find a lot of people, if they love Tula, then they love Allison, then they love Kaif. There's like this progression of designers that all have that same high-level saturation, the complexity of their designs, the unusual blenders, because I think Ruby Star is really underrated for the quality of their blenders. A good tone-on-tone blender provides such texture to quilts that I think
absolutely.
And they've done some really amazing. I shed a tear the day they announced that they were retiring Added Up, because I was like, those little crosses are just so nice.
I know.
But yeah, so it is interesting. I've often found when I talk to people about fussy cutting, you don't ever hear anyone go, oh, I love Tula, but then I'm really into the traditional feed sack.
Yeah. Right. Like reproductions from Civil War or whatever.
Yeah, which funny.
Are lovely in their own way, but that's not my aesthetic.
No, and I've just got addicted to Barbara Brackman's William Morris collections with Moda. And
love.
I feel like William Morris is an early Tula kind of thing, because there's lots of scroll work in his stuff. Animals. There's hidden stuff in the backgrounds. And Barbara Brackman's got a collection coming out called Ebony Sweet, and it's all black, grey. And you remember the colours that Ruby Star did when they were Cotton and Steel in their black and white collection, where it's got that it's not a tan, but like a really creamy, I don't know, light browny grey colour. And so it's got
Yes.
all of that in it. And I was like, oh, how am I going to mix all this in? So it is really funny. And I get asked this question a lot when we're talking about fabric. Do you buy with a plan, or do you buy, I like this and so I'm going to just add it to the stash and I know I'll find a use for it? Is it a mix? Do you get most of your fabrics from kits?
No, so for Tula, every time I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to pre-order this one. Maybe I'm going to hold off and just buy what I need. And then of course people start making projects with it and I see it all on Instagram and I'm like, okay, you know what? Of course I'm going to pre-order it. So for Tula, I have every line, usually in a half yard or bigger. For other things, I don't do this as often, but I really like to make bags. So when I make a bag, I generally will just buy the fabric for that specifically. My sister had a baby recently and I made a quilt for the baby, and her color palette was very much not tulip pink. It was like clay and forest green and sage and foxes and that sort of thing. So I bought fabric for that. But for the most part, yeah, I just buy Tula's newest collection. And then if it's something else, then we'll buy what I need.
What is it about the fussy cutting that sparks your excitement, I guess? Because it is a really niche technique and a lot of people are put off by the fabric waste, the perceived fabric waste, I should say. But what is it? Can you actually put your finger on what it is that encourages you with the fussy cutting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think because the outcome of it when it's together and makes that secondary pattern is so rewarding that the effort is worth it. I just think it looks so amazing, and it makes you look at fabrics that maybe you wouldn't have looked at. And so like you said, the Queen of Diamonds fabric, that wasn't my favorite fabric. Yeah. But when you take a small piece like this, the scroll work at the bottom, and you put it in this, it looks like this fantastic, glorious flower. I don't know. It changes the possibilities in fabrics, I think. Plus, I just like a challenge. I like building my skills and feeling like that I'm growing as a quilter. So it was a really fun way to challenge myself, I think.
And do you think, this is controversial, do you think there is a lot of fabric waste in fussy cutting?
I can see why that's a turnoff for people, because the black spots on spots when I was cutting out the little setting triangles, oh my God, I laid it out on the floor and I had all these triangles cut out of it. And I was like, this is the most expensive piece of Swiss cheese ever. Like, oh, if my husband knew, if he only knew. But there's still so many sections left that I will easily be able to find something else to do with those other. And I think that's part of like the creativity. Like, how can I, as an artist, find a way to use those extra pieces and not make it wasteful? And I'm pretty good at that. I can get things whittled down to pretty tiny little, like, just crumbs.
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same. And it's one of the things when people are like, oh, there's so much waste in it. And I think, no, you're just not seeing the possibilities and what's left. Mm-hmm. And, exactly. And again, I really like I'm most creative when I've got strict boundaries on where I can go and where I can't go. And so the problem solving around, like, I've got some of the pandas from line work left. And I've only got like a fat quarter, maybe a little bit more than a fat quarter left. And so I'm like, oh, how am I going to maximize?
Yes.
I can't go willy-nilly like I've been. How am I going to maximize that? And so the problem solving then unlocks a different, like, I think sometimes that's where you find some really amazing learning opportunities, is in that problem solving. I've also... Absolutely. Do you have a scrap management system?
Plastic bags was sorted by color. I mean, it could be better, but the thought of doing that is so overwhelming that I'm just like, no, I'd rather work on something else. So I don't do New Year's resolutions, but part of my goal for this year is to just make quilts with the fabric that I have, with the goal of reducing my scrap basket, because it is full to bursting. It is it's out of control. So most of it's Tula because that's what I've been working on. So that's going to be my project for this year to do Prudence and Penelope by Lilabella Lane Creations, because those are great for fussy cutting. And I like that they only have 4 repeats instead of 6. So you can get more out of a bigger repeat on like a fat quarter.
Yep.
And then finish my fussy bugs. I'm doing Tumbling Cosmos, which is Tula's newest pattern with the tumbling blocks. And I don't need to buy any fabric for that. I have enough to do that one probably twice. And there's another one that I think I wanted to do that will just be scraps, but that's my goal, to at least whittle it away a little bit.
I'll give you a bit of a tip for this scrap management. Go through and keep all the stuff that's out of print and that you absolutely love, bag the rest up, sell it on Dstash or Facebook, because there are people out there that will buy the scrap bags and make the stuff. Or, as we did when we were in Canberra, find a preschool. Do you guys have kindergarten?
Yes.
And give them your scrap bags, because kids love fabric.
Yes, that's a lovely idea. And I'll whisper to the teacher, like, don't tell them how much this is worth. You don't want to know.
I used to go down there and give them the scraps. I'd be like, here, have fun with these. And then a week later, our kid would bring it home. Stuck to a piece of cardboard.
I'm just trying to get rid of this.
Like, buddy, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I love about the quilting community, though. There's lots of ways to be more consciously mindful of how we use our fabric. And while you mightn't do, like, I don't often delve back into the scraps, I know there's other people who will appreciate them. And so how do I gift them on, I guess, is my big thing. And so there's lots of stuff. And I know lots of people at this time of year are like, I'm going to use my stash and I'm not going to buy anything. And And then Chula goes, ha, I see you and your goals.
Exactly.
Here's my new collection. And so I think there's a balance between the two, obviously, which you sound like you've gotten under control. Is there anything on your quilt bucket list? I mean, you've done some big bucket list quilts, the La Passe, Dear Jane.
Yeah. I want to finish my Dear Jane eventually. That's a long-term project, though. I'm trying to think what else. I do have in my notes app, I do have like quilts to make, but I think it's less about patterns that I want to make and more about skills I want to build, and then finding quilts that accomplish that.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a whole list here of quilts that I would love to make or finish, but I would love to make Juicy Juice's Moonstone quilt. That's from a few years ago, but that one's really beautiful.
Can you still get the templates and papers for that?
I don't know. I'd have to look. Maybe Etsy has it, but
if you get stuck, let me know, because I just found a complete kit that I've never opened.
Oh my goodness. Look at you. You can make it.
I could.
If you have time. Yeah.
No, I don't.
No, that's the problem, right? So yeah, you know what else I did make though, and I have you to thank, because I found you years ago, and it's the Farmer's Wife 1920s.
Oh yeah.
That I made that, and I made that with V&Co's ombre. Yep. The rainbow ombre, and I don't have that nearby, but I do have it. It's on my Instagram there, and yeah, there's all kinds of things I want to make, but I think it's mostly skills I want to focus on.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, and I've not thought about it. I have that shiny object thing where I'm like, oh, new quilt, I want to make that. But I found the Moonstone because I started Smitten by Lulu Well back, nearly a decade ago, I think. And I was machine piecing it, and because I'm a glutton for punishment. Yeah. Yeah. And I never got the blocks finished, obviously. And so I was like, you know what? I need a little hand project. So I went back which is how I came to find the stuff. I went into the EPP tubs and kind of was like, oh, I'll find this. And I've got stuff for La Passe. I've got Moonstone. I've got Chula's Nova. Like all of this stuff. And I'm like, what was I thinking? I will never get this stuff done. But I am going to start. I've got a Lucy Boston that I And I'm surprised you don't have a
Oh,
Lucy
yeah.
Boston.
I know.
But the design by Lilabella Lane is it Prudence that you're working on at the moment?
Yes.
That's got a little bit of a Lucy Boston feel to it.
It does, yeah.
But yeah, so there's a couple of things that I think, I'd love to stitch more. Is there people that you follow or watch what they do? Like, where do you go to get your inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, mainly Instagram. I don't really go on Facebook very much, just for like quilting groups and stuff, but I don't have a personal Facebook. So I stay off there. But Instagram, I follow, obviously Tula. I follow you. Quilting by Alyssa.
Oh, yeah.
And Strawberry. Yeah, she's wonderful. Strawberry Quilt Cake is wonderful.
Yeah.
Indie Hipster Quilts, I believe, is another one that's really good. You should look her up. She has some great inspiration on there. I follow a lot of hashtags. So I follow a lot of Tula Pink hashtags and Allison Glass hashtags, and I find accounts that way. Okay. So even if someone only has 200 or 300 followers, if they have really nice looking things, I'll give them a follow, because I think, it's not about follow count. It's about creativity.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is you got to use these tools in a way that suits your process, because a lot of people get put off by Instagram and they're like, I can't be as perfect as these people, and they take amazing photos, and you're like, dude, you're not competing with them, you're competing with yourself.
Yeah,
so
exactly,
get in there, give it a go. Now I'm going to ask you one last question about quilting. You don't quilt your own quilts?
I do. I do both. I've sent one away. I sent my La Paz away to Teresa Silva, Quilting is My Bliss, and she did a phenomenal job. So that was that, and there was no way I could quilt that quilt on my domestic. It just, I couldn't do it. It's too big. But every other quilt that I've made, I've quilted myself on my Brother machine at home.
Yep.
Funnily enough, the quilting part of the process of making a quilt is my least favorite part of the process. I dread it.
I don't do it. Like, proud, not doing it. Yeah. Send it to my girlfriend and she does it, because it's a skill set in and of itself, and I do not have the time to learn it and master it. And I'm like you, I like things to be perfect. I've got to come up with another word than perfect. I like things to be to my standard.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And I feel like when I quilt it, I have gotten better. I do straight line quilting, which, is fine. Yeah. But I also do free motion quilting. I can do one thing and it's like a little stipple. And I've gotten better at it. But like you, if it's not how I envisioned it, then I get upset. Yeah. So sometimes, like for the heirloom quilts, like the La Paz, I wanted to put it in someone's hands that I knew could do it justice. So, and
I know that this isn't the be all and end all of quilting, but are you going to enter your La Paz in any shows?
I don't think so. There's so many of them out there because of the kit. That's not something I've really explored personally to enter into shows. Maybe that's something I do need to think about, but that's not really been the top of my mind.
I look at entering shows from the thing of, I think my quilt's a winner if someone walks through the show and goes, oh, I want to make that, or I could do that. And that's the reason for shows, is to show people what's possible and help them find. Because I don't know about you, but when I started, fussy cutting wasn't really a thing that they taught at my beginners class, or that you could go and readily find information about. And so to put a fussy cut quilt in a show where someone can go, oh, look, they did that. Or I'm a big fan of novelty fabrics. So to put a quilt in a show that doesn't read as childish, that you can use novelty fabrics to do adult quilts and it's okay. And that Star Wars fabric can be elevated.
Yes, of course. I love that perspective. That's a really good idea.
So I'm like, fussy bugs would be a great one to put into a show.
That's true.
Yes.
I should think about that for sure once I finish it.
Okay. So I've kept you for long enough this morning and I appreciate your time. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think we should?
I don't think so. It's been so lovely to talk to you
too.
And see your face in person. It's very nice. And I appreciate you so much reaching out to me about this. This is so fun to talk about this stuff because nobody I'm a self-taught, I guess I'm an internet taught quilter. I've never taken a class or anything. So there's nobody in my life who does this with me. So to be able to talk to someone who gets it is really lovely.
It is. We are a small but growing group of fussy cutters. And I've really appreciated, like I said, I think that first day I lost 2 hours. The other day, because I was looking for inspiration on LaPasse because I was like, oh, should I do a LaPasse now? I've obviously got all the papers. And I just stared at and even now, I don't know what the fabric is in the big top left-hand corner.
The pink one?
Yeah. Is it Elizabeth?
Yeah,
no, it's Parisville.
No.
It's Parisville.
It's Parisville Deja Vu, yes.
Yeah.
And Teresa, when she quilted it, she did such a, I have it sitting here next to me, that's what I'm looking at. She did such a remarkable thing where she outlined the face and the hair.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
And
I can't do that.
Yeah, it's got like you've used the ombre fabric from the Florida, what is it?
The Daydreamer?
Daydreamer. Yeah, that's it. I call it the Florida-based one because there's like
it is very Florida, yeah.
Pina colada and fruit and stuff.
Yeah.
But it just glows in that top corner.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that one's one of my favorites.
It's amazing. So I will link to everything so people can go and have a look. We will be talking to Katie again because we are going to follow Fussy Bugs to completion, no pressure, and get back to you and talk to you about how you're progressing on all of the things that you've got going on. And thank you for coming. Thank you for spending time.
Thank you so much.
And we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
That sounds wonderful. It was so nice to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fussy Cutters podcast. Enjoyed listening? Why not subscribe so you'll never miss an episode? Did you know the quickest way to the heart of any podcaster is to leave a review or recommend the podcast to a friend? It's true, it is. Until next week, get out there and fondle that fabric.